cancel the proposal before it, for I know that it constitutes a recognition that the Republic of Somalia fully deserves, and a recognition which will also amply prove to be to the benefit of our organization. Thank you.
On the 1st of July 1960, the independent Somali Democratic Republic, commonly known as Somalia, was formed out of former British and Italian territories, with Mogadishu as the capital and Aden Abdullah Osman Daar as first president. Since its collapse in 1991, Somalia may have been brought to its knees by decades of war, but in the 1960s, after it threw off the chains of colonialism to gain its independence, it was a model of democracy. When Somalia gained its independence in 1960, Abdullah Osman Daar was elected the country's first president, a position he held until 1967. In the 1967 presidential election, Dar was defeated by Abdirashid Ali Shermaki, his former prime minister. Dar accepted the loss graciously, making history as the first head of state in Africa to peacefully hand over power to a democratically elected successor. This early independent period was a golden period of Somalia's democracy. As a country endowed with natural resources, Somalia was able to sustain itself. With good governance and democratic rule, the nation used its natural resources to feed its own people. Somalia had surplus grain that was exported to the outside world. Democratic rulers of Somalia were very confident that their country was as civilized as any other country in the world, including the U.S. This can be attested to by the speech in 1968 of the then Somalia Prime Minister Mohammed Ibrahim Egal during his visit to the U.S.
Even though my people are geographically remote from the shores of the United States, yet they know and feel that they share with the people of this great country the irresistible bonds of similar institutions of government, mutual belief in democratic rule, and a commitment to preserve the dignity of man and his supremacy over his own institutions of government. Our country, Mr. President, is as large as your state of Texas, as big as Portugal and Spain together. And even though remote in distance by the standards of a bygone age, it has been brought closer to your nation by the modern advancement of technological development. We are close to others also in the family of nations, because geographically we are a crossroads of Africa, Asia, and Middle East.
It is, however, unfortunate that the democratic system of Somalia could not last long. President Abdirashid Ali Shermaki was assassinated in 1969. The slaying led to an unopposed, bloodless coup d'etat. The assassination shattered post-colonial Somalia's fresh start as a democratic state. Deposing the civilian government, Major General Mohammed Siad Barre assumed leadership of the officers. The new governing body, the Supreme Revolutionary Council, or SRC, installed Siad Barre as their president. Siad Barre banned political parties, abolished the National Assembly, and suspended the Constitution. Somalia was proclaimed a socialist state. Barre advocated the concept of a greater Somalia that would encompass Somalia, the Republic of Djibouti, and Ogaden in Ethiopia, and the northern eastern province of Kenya. In July 1977, the Ogaden War broke out. The Somali National Army invaded the Ogaden region in Ethiopia. Barre was successful at first, capturing most of the territory. However, the invasion reached an abrupt end with the Soviet Union's shift of support to Ethiopia, followed by almost the entire communist world siding with Ethiopia. Around 15,000 Cuban troops were also brought to assist Ethiopia. Worrying about the outcome of the war, Siad Barre lamented that the powerful states of the world armed Ethiopia to its teeth.
In accordance to our information, the armament that Ethiopia received is unnecessary in quality and in quantity, and very dangerous to the area. I said in quantity and in quality because many of them are so sophisticated, which non-African people possess. Neither Arab people, I think, possess such arms. I don't see why such arms is given, what aim and object is behind it. I really I don't understand it.
In 1978, Somali troops were ultimately pushed out of Ogaden. After fallout from the unsuccessful Ogaden campaign, Barre's administration began arresting government and military officials under suspicion of participation in an abortive 1978 coup d'etat. Most of the people who allegedly helped plot the putsch were summarily executed. However, several officers managed to escape abroad and started to form the first of various dissident groups dedicated to ousting Barre's regime by force. The government became increasingly totalitarian, and resistance movements, supported by the Ethiopian government, sprang up across the country. This eventually led, in 1991, to the outbreak of civil war that resulted in the toppling of Barre's regime and the disbandment of the Somali National Army. Siad Barre was ousted and fled the country. Those who fought to defeat the regime now began to fight to control the country. The most prominent armed factions were those led by General Mohammed Farah Alidid and those of Ali Mahdi Mohammed's. The two clashed to control the capital. This marked the beginning of 2 decades of protracted civil war that devastated Somalia. In these 2 decades, Somalia had come to be seen as a hapless nation in the grip of constant civil war, infested by pirates, warlords, and terrorism. The international community abandoned Somalia to its own fate. After the collapse of the central government, Somalia faced an existential threat as a nation. The staggering levels of starvation, destruction, and dislocation have led to social disintegration on an immense scale. The glue that held society together, tribal law and the elders, was challenged as never before. Islam, one of the characteristic features of Somali's identity, was abused by terrorist groups that committed crimes against humanity in its name. Al-Shabaab is a typical example. Indeed, no group of people suffered as a result of Al-Shabaab terrorism as much as the people of Somalia, who are 100% Muslims. The people were also victims of those who claimed to fight Al-Shabaab terrorism too. Somalia's human tragedy is exacerbated by the status as a battleground in the war on terror, with the United States constructing what the Washington Post called a Constellation drone base in the Horn. The drone attack took many innocent lives in Somalia. Despite Somalia being a member of the UN and other international organizations, no action was taken by the international community to avert the growing humanitarian crisis in Somalia.
I saw in Somalia a forgotten and neglected humanitarian emergency. We have the worst enrollment in school in the world. We have a crisis which cannot be allowed to continue to develop as it is. So my big appeal is help Somalis help themselves and use the United Nations and humanitarian organizations as channels to save lives and build a better future in Somalia.
However, this call to save Somalia fell on deaf ears. No mobilization was made by the international community to help Somalia reinstate itself. A serious work to avert the situation was only taken by Turkey. On August 19, 2011, 2 planes landed in Mogadishu bearing Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his wife, along with a delegation of Turkish politicians, businessmen, journalists, singers, even a reality television star. After returning from Somalia, the then Prime Minister and now President Tayyip Erdogan urged Turkish people to help Somalia with its emotional call.
Hayırseverlerimize şunu hatırlatmak istiyorum. Bunu lütfen kendi evinizin içerisinde bir yangın gibi görün. O yangını nasıl söndürmeye gayret ediyorsanız, Somali'deki yangının da böyle bir yangın olduğunu görün.
The aim of Turkey's support to Somalia was to make Somalia stand on its own feet and return to normality as a nation. Concerning this, the Turkish president said the following at the time.
O yatırım daha sonraki safha. Şimdi önce bir defa şu acili Yani oksijen çadırındayız. Ölümle baş başayız. Dolayısıyla bunu bir halletmemiz lazım. Hastaneydi, yoldu, suydu, bunları halletmemiz gerekiyor. Ve bunu başardığımız andan itibaren tabii inanıyorum ki orada bir psikolojik noktada da vatandaş kendine gelecek.
The Turkish government's determination to shoulder the responsibility of taking Somalia out of its devastating problems was something unprecedented in the modern history of the bilateral relationship between two nations. Turkey acted as if it was helping its own problem. Turkey announced that it would provide Somalia with whatever was needed.
Devlet olarak biz oradayız. Şimdi gemilerimiz sürekli bir şekilde her türlü araç, gereç, gıda ne geliyorsa aklınıza. Şimdi mesela biz Toprak Mahsulleri Ofisimizden 50.000 ton buğdayımızı inşallah oraya nakledeceğiz. Bunun yanında yoğun bir şekilde şeker oraya nakledeceğiz. Ve araç gereçler noktasında mesela ambulans diye bir şey tanımıyoruz. Şu anda 3 tane ambulans yolda, 5 tane daha gönderiyoruz. 8 ambulans aynı şekilde oraya ulaşacak. İş makineleri göndereceğiz Mogadishu Belediyesi'ne. Sıkıştırmalı çöp kamyonları göndereceğiz.
Unlike others who paid lip service in assisting Somalia, Turkey became the only country to walk the talk. The witnesses for this are the Somalis themselves.
runtii Turkiga waxaan u arkaa dowlad aad iyo aad u wanaagsan. Aniga khaasatan waxaa tegay dalalka Afrikada qaarkood waxyaabaha oo laga qabanayo weli ma arko waxyaabaha ay qabanayaan Turkiga si aad iyo aad ayay dadka u hagabaxayaan si aad iyo aad u wanaagsan ayayna u qabanayaan dadka u caawinayaan tan walba dhanka caafimaadka dhanka dhismaha dhanka iskuulada tan walba.
In 2012, the Prime Minister of Somalia said that he had to say the truth about Turkey's practical steps to help Somalia. And he said that Turkey's only motive was to help Somalia.
And I think they are the sponsor that we have been looking for the last 20 years. I think we found the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail now is a Turkey for Somalia. The others are not forthcoming with resources for this project to succeed. They are there for us. Anytime we need their help, they're there. Truth has to be told, you know. And the truth is that these guys, they came here to help us. No more, no less. If anybody else has some issues with it, I don't care. That's their problem.
The visit by Erdogan and the generous Turkish help sparked off a new era in Somalia and a new posture for Turkey as an emerging player across Africa. Over the next years, more than 1,200 Somali students arrived in Turkey on full scholarship. This represents a huge investment in Somalia, with $70 million.
waxaan maanta ka tagayaa Ilaahay karaad noqday magaalada Mogadishu waxaan u socday jaamacad oo Turki ma sha Allah aadna ugu faraxsanahay jaamacadda aan helay ee Turki waxaan aad ugu faraxsanahay wadanka maanta waxbarasho ahaan inaan soo barto aan ugu tago haddaan inaan soo laabtan aan jeclahay wadankayga aadna u jecel waan u soo laabanaya inaan wax u soo barto soo laabtan jeclahay.
Turkey also opened its embassies in Mogadishu. The Turkish embassy served as the first stop for any newcomers seeking advice about Somalia. Donations to Somalia from Turkey's private sector amounted to more than $365 million in 2011, while Turkey's government donated $49 million. Thanks to this intense campaign, Turkey is much loved by Somalia's government and civil society. The Somali ambassador to Turkey, Nur Sheikh Hamoud Marsal, describes Turkey as a savior sent by God to Somalia. The Somalian cabinet has voted Erdogan Man of the Somali People, and streets and babies have been named after Erdogan, Istanbul, and Turkey. By its virtuous humanitarian action, Turkey has also won international acclaim. In 2013, Somali Prime Minister Abdul Fattah Shirdan called Turkey an irreplaceable friend and vowed to mark Turkey-Somalia Day in the calendar, declaring the 19th of August 2011 as Turkey-Somalia Day. He also said, "No one can take Turkey's place. Turkey has always been an example nation for us." Shirdan's remarks about Erdogan also really show what the Turkish leadership did for Somalia. Concerning Erdogan's 2011 visit to Mogadishu, Shirdan said that the fate of Somalia changed after Erdogan's visit. Post-Erdogan's visit, Somalia is much different from previous years. Before Erdogan went to Somalia, no one would come to visit the country. Somalia was completely isolated. After that day, the world changed its view of Somalia. Other countries and leaders started showing interest in the country. Now, the horrors that define Somalia are slowly giving way to a new Somalia. The new Somalia is relatively peaceful and is making slow but steady socioeconomic and political progress. The International Monetary Fund's review of the Somali economy put Somalia's real GDP growth to 3.7% in 2012 and 2014. This is the first officially recognized growth after 2 decades. Somalia has also seen an increase in agricultural production. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, in 2014, Somalia exported over 5 million livestock to markets in the Gulf states, with an estimated value of $360 million that contributed 40% to the country's gross domestic product. Politically, too, Somalia has once again become a place where fair and free elections are conducted. On the 8th of February 2017, the Somali presidential election was held. The former Prime Minister Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed was elected as the 9th president of Somalia for a 4-year term. In general, it seems that Somalia is rising again from the ashes, and momentum needs to be sustained so that Somali's peace and stability will be permanent. For this to happen, the international community must support Somalia's aspiration of returning to their golden age of maintainable peace and prosperity.